Welcome to the show where John starts the teardown and inspection of our engine.
Sorry folks, I didn't show it, but I removed the tranny, obviously. She's sitting there. Just FYI, I created a video that does nothing but explain all the different numbering schemes for the various components on a car. I urge you to look at that, because I found out the hard way, like I said, that the engine that was in the car is not authentic to the car. I thought it was a numbers matching vehicle, but it's not. Numbers matching means that every part of the car was authentic the day it was made from the factory. It still has it, so to speak. There haven't been any aftermarket parts or engine swaps or that type of thing. So anyways, what I have determined is that the differential is at least time accurate for the vehicle, and the transmission is time accurate for the vehicle. Now, it's very hard to find serial numbers and proof from the factory that they were on it the day it was made, but transmissions and differentials don't really go bad. So the fact that they're the right series for this vehicle, it means there's a high chance, above 90%, that they were authentic, original with the vehicle. The engine, no way. The engine is dating to 72, 73, and even the engine, which is made up the block and the head, which is sitting there, even they don't match. So the head is from a different year than the block, and so nothing is right. But just FYI, this piece here is what allows you to mount the different and varying blocks to the different types of transmissions. It's called the backing plate. And as the years changed in the MG, the backing plates altered slightly depending on the transmission you were getting with it, that type of thing. So on the bright side, this backing plate allowed that engine, which is too new, so to speak, to mount to the older transmission. So there was some attempt to keep things original at some point in its history. So please check out that video. In the meantime, the transmission is just bolted on, 5 or 6 bolts around the sides. It's no gee whiz, just take it off. So I'm going to start filming again for you. I'm going to remove the this whole clutch assembly and the flywheel, because I eventually want to get this backing plate off, so I have complete access to the block to continue on dismantling it. So step one is you got to remove these bolts, and then this piece will come off, and then there'll be a cluster of bolts on the inside. They'll be kind of torqued down pretty high, so those might pose a little more issues, but let's see how we go. All right, so I got that off. This is the clutch plate. Here's those bolts I was talking about. These are going to be a little more, they're going to put up a bigger fight. But then the flywheel will come off, and then we can get to the backing plate here. So I'm going to have to get my breaker bar out. Flywheel's off. It wasn't too bad. The problem is the designers used these shallow head bolts, which there's just no way you're gonna get those out without stripping at least one of them. So my only advice to you is make sure to use a, I don't know what you would call it. The socket only has 6 sides. Don't use one of those multi-sided sockets like this guy. The multi-sides, because they will strip it for sure. So anyways, other than that, now we're down to just getting this backing plate off, which appears to be quite a few bolts. There's a myriad of them in here. There's this plate with these secure tabs on it that you'll have to bend down. I'm trying to think. Just some words about the flywheel, but when we're putting it on, I'll probably revisit all this stuff. But it's interesting because the flywheel is machined. There's some lightning holes on one particular side of it because they're actually using the flywheel along with the crankshaft to take vibrations out of the engine, which are inherent in a 4-cylinder engine. So you can put the flywheel on wrong. You got to make sure it's oriented correctly when you're putting the stuff back together. Other than that, it's just the flywheel. Okay, so there's 2 different size bolts. There's 2 long ones, and then these shorter ones. The long ones are here, and then the shorter ones are this circular array around the outside. This has been messed with before because these locking tabs were they were demolished. So I did get them bent back, but they're all destroyed. So I'll need a new retainer when we get there. But now let's just get these bolts out and move on, which will be theoretically this plate. I don't see any more bolts. Should just come off after these are out. Let's see. And with one good smack, the plate comes off. This seal is notorious for going bad. We've got some alignment pins. That's nice. This is the area that the cavity that had crappy sealing around here. I'm not sure what lies beyond this. I'm assuming, I'm not going to assume anything, but let's just keep going. All right, so all that's new after I got that back plate off was I took the rest of the studs out, and I have, now that the head side is flat, I can support it on this wood here. So the obvious question that many are probably asking is, John, why aren't you using an engine stand? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One of them is that I've already bought 2 of those, and although they're not bank breakers, they're only like 70 bucks. I'm using them to support the body, and I could rig something temporarily so I can use one as an engine stand, but the hell with that. The other reason is because I'm kind of used to this because I work on a lot of lawnmower engines and stuff, and you're just down low, and I can get good leverage when I'm kneeling, and there's all kinds of things like that. So that's just my personal preference as to how I like to work. And certainly now, when the engine starts, it's definitely kind of a weird shaped thing to keep secure. But now that it's flat on the top and will soon be flat on the bottom when I get the oil pan off and the oil pump out of there, it'll be flat there also. So it'll be real easy. Plus, you're taking more parts off of it, so it's getting lighter and lighter to manipulate and rotate. So it's just personal preference. But yes, if I had the the rubber gloves on and the white doctor's robe on that you people see, you see them in videos when they're like cutting a piece of paper and they look like they're, you know, PhD physicists. That's not me. So now I have access to all sides at this point because there's nothing left on top by the head. I can remove all these little ancillary things like these two little covers you're seeing here. I can remove the, on the other side there's a mount for the distributor, there's a mount for the oil filter. I can get the stuff off the front of the engine now. So I have access to everything, real easy to get to now. And it's, again, a stable working platform. So the right and left engine mounts are off and nicely tucked away. The one on the right side of the car was kind of a bear. Let's just say the engineering wasn't real good because they kind of hid some of the bolts so you can't get at them without jerking around. But anyways, it's not like anything was frozen on or crazy. It's just the way they hid the bolts from you. So what else can we take off? We can take these guys off pretty easy. And this, whatever the hell that is. Then we'll move to the other side. Alright, they all came out without a fight. So we'll move around to the other side and see what we got. What do we got to deal with over here? Let's see, we got this thing. We got this thing, obviously. And there's a bracket here for the generator / alternator. And then that's kind of it. After that, there's a little something here. And when I'm putting this back together, it'll be more technical than that thing and that thing. I mean, I'll tell you what it is because I will have learned by that point. This is the mount for the oil filter. And these are something you can buy from Moss to kind of flip it. So it makes it easier to get at the oil filter because here you got to reach down and under and it's whatever, but that's original. This bracket is original to a generator. And then we'll move along to the front. Now this bolt theoretically will bust my balls. So I'm not looking forward to that. Everything else should be straightforward. This one's going to be interesting because I took the flywheel off with all the teeth on it and ways of clamping it, because when I go to take that out, it's going to want to spin the crankshaft, and since I don't have anything on the back end now, it's going to make that harder for me to, you know, hold this in place while I'm taking that bolt out. So worst case is I put the flywheel back on temporarily to clamp it so that I can get this out. This is more of a note to myself. This came off easy. Just keep the bits together. This came off easy. That was hard, but it just screws in here. Where's the screw in? Here. And then I just want to take note that that's just a bolt, and that is a some sort of vent or I don't know, but it's different. So I'm just taking note of that for myself.
Don't forget to hit those buttons.
So note to self, we're back on the other side. We got this one and this one out. This one is just a plug, this little guy, but this one had this spring attached, which usually means there's a valve, either a ball valve or something in there. So I need to be cognizant of that when I'm taking other stuff apart. It doesn't go rolling away and I don't notice it. So no sooner did I say that I just sprayed this in there to clean it out, and all of a sudden this little bad boy popped out. You know, that's the shit that nightmares are made of, is not seeing that or recognizing that. And you put the whole car back together and it just doesn't run because of something silly like this. So be aware of it. It goes in there behind the spring. And there could be other stuff in there, but this for sure popped out. So I got the water pump off without a problem, but like I said, this this bolt's giving me fits. So I did have to put the flywheel back on temporarily. I've got it clamped so it theoretically won't rotate. And now I can reef on this bolt and see if we can get that pulley off. Well, that was really on there. I had to break out my 3-foot breaker bar there to get enough leverage to loosen that sucker. So just be prepared for that. So now it should be a cakewalk. Get these guys off around here, then this plate will come off, and then I'll get to the oil pan. There's my plan of attack. Note to self, it's a combination of these and these 3 bolts, nuts, no bolts. So these bolts were for the plate only. These longer ones and these smaller size 7/16 go around the this cover here. The 2 shortest ones, because there's 2 long and 2 short, the long ones go where it's going into the block here. These short ones go here on this side, where all they have to go through is the cover and then directly into the plate. So, and then these others are the bigger ones that go around the cover. So I was trying to take this plate off, which seems like it'd be easy to do just by smacking here and on the other side, and it wasn't coming off. So I took off the cover to expose the timing chain. So what we got here is the timing chain that keeps the camshaft and crankshaft together in sync. And then you've got the tensioner here, this mechanism here. So I'm gonna take this mechanism off and see if there's some like hidden bolts under this that are keeping this thing from just popping off like the back plate did. So that came off not too bad. Again, you got to take the big nut off the timing gear, that's this guy. Then you've got to take the tensioner off, and be careful. There's one of those springs. As an assembly, it's automatic tensioning because the spring is pushing against the chain. And then you have to make sure you pull off this gear and this gear simultaneously, because the tolerances are pretty tight, so they got to come off as a set. Boom, and there they are, beautiful. And as I suspected, the reason this plate does not come off is because these guys are hidden inside. So let's get those off. We'll get that plate off, and then we'll take off that oil pan and see what's going on in there. So I figured I'd take the time to video me pulling this oil pan off. I'll probably speed it up because it does get mundane, but it's just such a big and juicy target that you see all the time you're taking the engine apart, that you get some satisfaction by pulling this guy off. It's not really a high torque item because it's a big old gasket and it doesn't see a lot of load. Plus there's so many bolts. But at the same time, whenever you do have a pattern around something on anything mechanical, you should always go around it in like a spiral or a figure 8. Don't just go around the edge. Do it cross, whether it's taking your tire off or you've seen it a couple of times on the motor. See what we unleash. There you have it. A little dirty in there. They didn't change the oil often enough. So you got your sump. There's no metal in the screen. Turn the pan over because of all the screws. Let me just turn the pan over real quick. So there's your pan. And what you're looking for is shards of metal, which, although it's not pretty in here by any means, there's no chunks of metal. So that's a good thing. Engines just aren't supposed to have little bits of metal floating around in them. Alright, so let's take this off. So that's nothing but a tube that the oil pump is sucking from at the bottom of the oil pan through the screen. They remove any nasty chunks, and then it's just coming into the oil pump here. All right, let's inspect what we got going on here. So this is the bare bones of the oil pump. You got this star pattern rotating. Notice that the star itself, the male, has 4 lobes, but the hole it goes in has 5, and that mismatch causes a pressure change as it's spinning, which pumps. And that's just one of a couple of different types of pump designs that there are. What else is going on? Let's see. We're noticing that under each one of these will be one of the bearings. This is called a 5 main bearing MG motor, which was pretty much from 64 on. They went with 5 mains. The first couple of years they had 3 mains, and it's exactly what you would think. They had the one on the end here, the one on the end here, and then one in the middle. These were not there, these 2. And there's pros and cons to both designs, so we're not going to go there. But pretty much anything from 64 on up till 1980 when they ended is a 5 main bearing motor. So we're noticing that they're labeled front, so you can't hose that up. But like when we're pulling out the push rods, okay, it very much matters now. I mean, the push rods are one thing, but you got to get these back in place. Make sure when you're taking this stuff apart that you label it very clearly exactly where it came from. So this, I thought would just kind of pull off, but it's not. So there's something kind of holding that in there. I'm not sure what it is yet. When I get to the root of that issue, I will certainly let you know. But so here we are at this point. So what happens now as you pull these off, that will expose the bearings the main bearings that you talk about, which are just little pieces of metal, half moon shaped pieces of metal that the actual crankshaft rides on. It doesn't ride on the actual metal of this cap or the engine block. There's little sleeves in there that take the wear. So we'll have a look at that. Yeah, is there anything else to talk about in here? No, that's about it for now. Just remembered something. While I'm in this situation here, state of disassembly, notice that that's a bearing, that's these big guys. Well, these things here and here are the actual bottoms of the pistons or the connecting rods. All right, so when the engine's spinning, notice the bearings aren't moving, but the crankshaft is rotating and it's got offset lobes, so to speak. The difference from the center line to here is offset, and that causes the piston to go up and down in the cylinder. And what it's doing in the mechanical world is it's changing translational motion up and down into rotational motion, which is what a car needs to operate on. So that's what's happening. All right, we're back. We did the research, and it turns out that these funky nuts will work with a regular 12-point socket. I'm trying to find one, but this is a 7/16, but it'll take a 1/2-inch regular 12-point socket. So that issue is resolved and we can continue on. In the meantime, I have marked each one with the piston it's coming from and which way is forward, because again, all this shit was matched at the factory, and just this stupid shit like turning this the opposite way can affect things. It's just the way it is. So keep track of how you're taking stuff apart and put it back exactly the same way. All right, I've loosened my bearing caps here. Let's have a look at the state of the engine. All right, this is bad. Okay, this is an example of bad. You're not supposed to see the underlying metal coming through. It's supposed to be nice and clean silver with no ridges in it. Similarly, if you look at the crank, you can see there's kind of linear markings going around it. That shouldn't be there either. That should be beautiful, shiny silver metal. So look at the next one. We've got a non-bearing situation. It's right here. And you can see this one's even more worn than the other one. Lost the bolt down the middle, but that's okay. Down here, similarly, a trashed bearing. So, in a grade of health, That's like stage 3 cancer right there. Not dead yet, but not a good sign. Just for giggles, let's take off one of these cranks. If we can. Okay, that one's not coming off without a fight. There we go. So similarly to the bearings we just saw under here, what's this looking at? Similar to the bearings that are under here, there's bearings under these caps here. And again, just terrible. So, and again, there's the same wear is on the actual crankshaft. Okay, so that's just a wealth of wonderful news. I'll have to determine what the hell I'm going to do about this. Because let's just recap. I knew, and I found out the hard way, this engine does not belong to the 67 Mk1 that you've just seen me rebuild the whole body on it. Alright, so that was bad news number 1. So then it's like, okay, I can tear into this. Oh, and by the way, we knew that the head doesn't match the block. So even this is not a matched pair. It's a 73 block with a head. It's got a weird number. It's a 12H4, like 736. That head, from what I can tell, was made as a generic late model. It came out later in the history. And so you can kind of do with it as you need to. So I don't know what to do now that this engine is kind of in bad. It's going to take some cost to get it back into shape. You know, jerking with the crankshaft and grinding it and this, that, and the other, versus just throwing in some new bearings and calling it good. You know, yeah, this has gone a little further than that. So I'm expecting the pistons, the rings will be non-existent. The walls of the cylinders will most likely be scored. If not scored, there'll be something wrong with them. Meaning that just putting in new rings is probably not going to be a solution to that either. So I got to make the decision what I do with this. I am pursuing finding the correct engine for that body. It's called an 18GB, and they're out there, but you know, when you're sourcing parts like that and you don't have unlimited budgets, you got to worry about like shipping costs. Well, so shipping costs on something this heavy is big. It's, you know, hundreds of dollars on top of whatever I'm going to have to pay for the block. So I'm going to be into a new engine, a bad one, you know, one that needs updating, rebuilding, for like $1,000. It's kind of what it's looking at, $700 to $1,000. So some decisions need to be made on what to do about this. Now remember, I have 3 other engines out there, complete engines from the 76, the 78, and I think it was a 73 that I've been using as the donor vehicle. They've all got their drivetrains in them.
Stay tuned for the second part of our 18 MGB engine block teardown.